Well, we are about to start a new campaign, a Star Trek Adventures campaign. I haven't run the system for a little while, just long enough to be pretty confident that there are things I've forgotten, and certain that the smoothness of play, that the nuances that I was able to feel comfortable with in the system, all of that stuff has been lost. They say that certain skills you don't forget how to do, like riding a bike is not something that you forget, but there are advantages to regular practice. So it's kind of nice to be able to get back to it. There are a number of 2D20 games. That's the system that powers Star Trek Adventures. There are a couple of 2D20 games that I'd like to play, and Star Trek Adventures is, I find, one that makes understanding the others easier. Let me put it that way. So, I'm kind of excited. I'll be playing with two people that I haven't played with before, but that I have communicated with, via the internet for a number of years. So I feel like I know them. So there's kind of in that in between state between knowing them and not knowing them, but like in the Matrix movies, the only real way to know someone is to fight them. The only real way to know someone is to game with them. So I'm looking forward to getting to know them through the vehicle of this campaign. Campaign doesn't have a name, which bothers me a little bit, but it's something that I have noticed about Star Trek Adventures is that unless I want to name the campaign after the ship or something, it's not until we have reached comfort with what exactly we're looking for can it be named. So in my first Star Trek Adventures campaign, we all latched on to the mission of the ship really tightly, and that led really easily to a good and suggestive enough yet ambiguous enough campaign title, To Know the Unknown. This tied into many of the activities that we wanted to do. There isn't something that ties so well into a title in the current arrangement, but there are so many ideas for initial situations, like the seeds of episodes. If I were working on a television series and we were sitting in the writer's room spitballing things that episodes could be about, the crew that the three players have generated, and the ship itself, and the mission assignment, which is crisis response, all of these things combined together have just been like a chain reaction of ideas for episodes in my mind. So, with this excitement over playing with new people and excitement over episode starter ideas, coupled with the need to get back up on the horse, or to try to ride the bike again, to relearn, to know the unknown, to to relearn the forgotten, kind of thing, is an interesting mix. It's a nice position to be in. Good reason to go over all the notes I made about Star Trek Adventures the first time and become comfortable with it again, because that second time will make the things I learn about the system more lasting and more real. So I want to be in that position, so I'm looking forward to that. Things I've noticed since the initial release of the PDF, there have been, by my count, 5 revisions of the text. And so it has incrementally gotten better. A lot of errata has been rooted out and fixed, but there's still an awful lot of typographical errors, which really shouldn't be there, and they certainly shouldn't be there now after so many revisions. But thankfully, the bookmarks have come back, so it's much easier to use the PDF than it has been in the intervening periods. If you wanted to use one of the slightly less error-filled versions of the PDF, you were doing so without bookmarks. And the way that the pages are laid out on most devices, that is pretty annoying. And you hear a lot of people say things like, "Oh, once I got the print book, there were so many things that I hadn't seen before." Right? You have to slide the PDF around on the screen in order to read everything, and it's very easy to miss stuff. And because the book has pretty eccentric organization, sometimes you can miss exactly what it is that you're looking for, which can also be frustrating, which leads to a safety precaution of making your own notes. Now, this is something I highly recommend, is going through the book, pulling out a framework of the rules, write it down in your own words so that you can easily access it, organize it in a way that makes sense to you, alphabetical or by order of need. You know that your opening scene is going to involve a particular set of rules, like maybe an extended task. Then put those first. Whatever. I mean, whatever makes sense to you, but definitely do it. It'll help you learn it, help you remember it, and reduce time lost searching through the book for something that should be much easier to find than it is. Good news for everybody who's interested in Star Trek adventures, that the new release of the Klingon core book has made most instances of searching through the text better. So that's nice. All right, so pretty optimistic, pretty excited. I'm looking forward to seeing what this group is like together. I'm looking forward to seeing what our communal Star Trek actually is. So far in our conversations, we have developed a pretty clear explanation and collaboration on what our exact aesthetic is. We've chosen to Star Trek adventure in the original series. So, we found art assets that show ships from that period of time, and we've brought in very specific cultural references and set up the crew in a very specific way so we can explore some of those things, or not explore them, have them be part of the backdrop. That remains to be seen in the alchemy of play. But I'm looking forward to it. So the first session is tomorrow, the last week of November. And the pilot episode, I can tell you, I'm not going to tell them, I'm not going to release this until after we've played the first time, is going to involve a rendezvous with another crisis response vessel, a larger ship that's been through a refit to serve the hospital ship purpose. Right? So they're going to be called to respond to a crisis where they're going to have to wrestle with environmental conditions and be against time pressure and have to make some pretty telling decisions about how to approach this medical emergency. Now, our crew is there to support that crew. What does that mean? The crews will, of course, likely mingle at some point during operations in and among the emergency victims. But the ship itself is a very small ship, and it's not finished its refit yet. So it's being moved over from being a ship of war into being a ship better suited for missions of mercy. So there's some things that it's simply not ready to do yet. And they're headed into hostile or potentially hostile territory. So they may end up serving more of a defensive role, protecting the crisis response mission crews, or they may end up taking point. This is one of the things I'm looking forward to discover. What roles will they, as the crew, identify need to be taken? what actions need to be taken, when do they need to be taken, by whom do they need to be taken, what are the possibilities, what are the different options that once they've identified them, they want to do themselves. Do they want to get into combat? Is this a group that's interested in space combats or person-to-person combats? Are they into solving medical emergencies, medical problems, or engineering problems, or things like that? It remains to be seen. So it's very open and exciting. But the initial, hopefully, hook to generate interest in all of this is that as they drop out of warp, they're going to find the ship that they're supposed to rendezvous with, the USS Potemkin, and it will be deserted. So they have a crisis on the planet, and they have a fully operational, undamaged starship with no crew, and a mysterious message from the surface. You've killed us all. So I know nothing about the pilot episode other than that. I mean, I understand the crisis, and I know how the crew disappeared, and that's it. That's all I know about this scenario. I mean, I know what the crisis is, and that will be explained to our crew very early on in their mission assignment. And I know why they have said, "You've killed us all." But what the crew will think of as necessary to do, what they'll want to do, what they'll be able to do, all of the stuff is up in the air. So it's pure discovery and pure adventure. I'm really looking forward to it. So I will be releasing these commentary videos after sessions are played, and I'm expecting, based on previous play with a similar time limit, we're going to be playing for around 2 hours. So I'm expecting that one episode of television will be 2 sessions. And if it's very complicated, it might be 3 sessions in order to do 1 episode's worth of Star Trek television, which is what Star Trek Adventures does so well, is create the feeling of episodic TV. All of its systems and aspects have been put together to give you a highly competent crew with an experience system which doesn't cause them to move from zero to hero, but rather to develop over time as characters, as people, as members of Starfleet. And the way that system is also structured is step by step, stage by stage, of varying degrees that affect individual members of the crew. And it feels like the things that develop over time in a series of television. So it's kind of neat. So once the pilot episode is done, this video will be released, and we can see how things went. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.